Just a reminder, you can catch me recording this podcast live on AMP. AMP is a new live radio app that lets you call in and chat with me in person while recording. Get the app on Apple's App Store and make sure you follow me at John Middlekauff to get notified when I go live. Live here, Thursday night football. The NFL is back here on AMP, and so is the 3 and Out podcast. That's what you're watching. How are we all doing? Good night. Let's fire it up. Talk some football. Lions, Chiefs, Dan Campbell gets a big win. We will dive in to it all. But like I said, 3 and Out podcast with me, John Middlekauff. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen. Apple, Spotify, we got you covered. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, like the video, leave a comment below, interact with our content. And thevolume.com, we got a lot of merch. We got some 3 and Out hats. Go check that out. And before we dive into, well, it was just an awesome game. I mean, thank you to the Lord Jesus that football is back. But first, what I need you to do, go to your smartphone and download a little app called Gametime. They happen to be the official ticketing app of this podcast. What you do is you sign up for tickets. You want to go, you live in Kansas City, you want to go to a Chiefs game. You live in Detroit, you want to go to the Red Hot Lions. Any NFL game, any college football game, concerts, comedy shows, they have you covered. Download the app, sign up for your first pair of tickets. And when you do, use the promo code JOHN. That's JOHN. Promo code JOHN. Get $20 off. I don't even need a thank you. Just go to the Gametime app and use the promo code JOHN. Any pair of tickets to any event and get $20 off. Thank me later just by using the promo code. Let's dive into the game. Incredible win by the Detroit Lions. Listen, was it the most beautiful game ever? Who cares? It's NFL football. It's back. Defending champs. And the Lions win. And a couple things really jump out to me. First and foremost, some people DM me like, what does Dan Campbell actually do? Well, couldn't I say the same thing about John Harbaugh or Mike Tomlin? Those guys are CEO head coaches. Don't call the offense. Don't call the defense. And both their teams, my entire really adult life since college, they've both been the coaches, have had an identity. And it's been toughness. And when you think of the Harbaugh family and when you think of Mike Tomlin, you think tough guys. And their teams always reflect it. Well, here's what I will say about the Lions. They reflect Dan Campbell, right? At the line of scrimmage, offensively, their O-line is awesome. And they know it, and they consistently go to it. My only knock on him tonight, when he went for it on 4th down, which they ended up stopping the Chiefs when they didn't get it, because Andy went for it on 4th and 25, a little YOLO, is that they didn't run the ball. Like, that's their point of difference, especially with Chris Jones sitting with 2 dudes from the Mafia sitting next to him up in a suite. So their identity is their head coach. Like, they are a really tough team. Here's the other thing. Their trade with Matt Stafford has worked wonders. Like, that netted them multiple first-round picks. The talent on their team, it's not very difficult to see. You don't need to be Bill Parcells or Bill Polian to watch them play a quarter of football and go, Jesus, they have a lot of talent. This isn't your mom and dad's Detroit Lions. And think about this, because Jameson Williams is trying to hit parlays, he's suspended right now. And he clearly is going to be one of the fastest and potentially one of the more dynamic players in the NFL. But offensively, their O-line's loaded. Aiden Hutchinson looks like the third Bosa brother. The young linebacker they just drafted made a play tonight. They signed a safety who's a playmaker from the Eagles, and they just have young talent. I mean, and here's the other thing, and I've said this forever, I don't care what you do for a living, right? Personally, we all need, when we're kids, usually whoever raises you, parents, grandparents, aunt, uncle, I don't care, someone to believe in you, someone to help you build confidence. And then maybe as you age through junior high and high school, maybe someone else outside of, your home, a teacher, a coach, kind of adds to that. And I think the same thing professionally. When you're young, honestly, whatever age you are, you need someone to believe in you. And when you have people that help you gain confidence by whether it's hyping you up, whether you're in a certain business, buying your product, going into business with you, in football, telling you you can play, telling you we want start you, that you can make plays, that we can win with you, that matters. And let's face it, a couple years ago, a little out of character, not that Sean McVay turns on players, he does a lot, but publicly, he just constantly was taking a giant shit on Jared Goff all the time. It was kind of crazy. And it was just a couple years removed from them going to the Super Bowl. This guy was the number 1 overall pick. Is he ever going to be Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson? Probably not. But as you've seen this last year and then tonight, the guy is a really good player. And early on, McVay believed in him. He was good. Now again, Dan Campbell and that operation, Ben Johnson, believe in him. He's good again. I don't even have the box score in front of me. All I know is I watched him tonight thinking, that's a really good quarterback. That's a guy you not only can make the playoffs with, but if you build a good enough team around him, like Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, I mean, he's every bit of that. And obviously last year, his stats reflected that. I watched a guy tonight that feels confident. He's calm, poised, collected on the road in what? A top 2-3 environment in the league? Like not an easy place to play. And this isn't the 2018 Chiefs. Their defense is pretty good, pretty physical team. And he's pretty unfazed. He's accurate. He's clearly really comfortable in their offense. They obviously have a lot of weapons around him. This is what I said on the preview pod when I not only picked them to win the division, I didn't understand. I've listened to a lot of podcasts, a lot of national pundits are down on the Lions. Obviously, X's and O's and your head coach really matters. And Dan Campbell, as of right now, before tonight, has never proven anything, right? He's never been a playoff level head coach. But clearly from an offensive coordinator standpoint, scheme-wise, they're really good. And then their personnel on defense, I would say, is vastly improved from last year. Their division, bye-bye Aaron Rodgers. Minnesota is going through a rebuilding process. And even if Fields improves, that roster stinks. This Lions team is loaded with talent. And like I bet on what I saw at the end of last season, down the stretch, and it showed tonight. Like one, they were down in that game. They didn't flinch. Never forget, they started 1-4. Remember, they did not start well last year. So they've built up some calluses. They've built up some beliefs. They know how to kind of climb out of a hole. They came into this game, to me, with a lot of confidence. Like they showed up ready to play. Now, we'll get into the Chiefs in a second. Obviously, it wasn't the full strength version, but you go on the road in this environment where I saw a lot of people on the interwebs, on the Twitter.com, saying like, what, the Lions, of all the teams you could have picked to play in this game. I actually think the Lions were a really good choice. I also think that reflects why the NFL is king. You couldn't do this in any other sport. The Lions, are they the loser? I'm 38 years old. They feel like the worst franchise over my entire life. They just feel like they always lose. They're always the butt of every joke. You could say the Browns, but they had some moments when I was really young. The Raiders made a Super Bowl when I was in like high school. So I would say the Lions by far, start to finish of the last 40 plus years, are the NFL's worst franchise. They didn't even make the playoffs last year. The NFL puts them in prime time with their biggest brands, as a player right now in Patrick Mahomes. And it felt completely normal. And I would imagine 25, 30 million people watch that game. And that speaks to the power of the NFL. But also, I give the NFL and the schedule makers some credit, kind of like picking stocks. They're like, we're betting on this one. Based on what we saw last year, they had a couple draft picks this year because of that Stafford trade. That tight end they drafted in the second round. Here's the other thing. The running back they drafted from Alabama, remember all the draft gurus? And listen, I tend to be like, you don't draft a running back in the first round. Like, I think we all kind of agree with that. But there are also some outlier situations, i.e. the 2023 draft, which was historically fucking terrible on paper. So if you're going to draft 12, 13, 14, and most GMs all admitted there were 12 to 15 first-round graded players max, and he clearly was one. The other thing, he's clearly a hybrid player. He can run the ball, but he's also really good as a pass catcher, which is kind of the knock when we're talking about paying these guys. Do you impact the passing game? Like Derrick Henry, Adrian Peterson, those guys are complete outliers. And honestly, most of those type players, even on the high end, are not coming into the NFL. You got to be able to do both. And if you do both on the high end, look at Christian McCaffrey, you become a star. That guy looks like a pretty damn good player to me. And back to Jared Goff. When you've had a good running game and a good offensive line, Jared Goff has proven he can win. He's never going to be some elite, all-time great player, but he's pretty darn good. And I think we need to start putting some more respect on his name, because it get back to the McVay stuff when everyone was really down on him, and I'm probably guilty of that too. But the guy I watched last year and the guy I watched tonight, I was really impressed. Now it comes to the Chiefs. My topic mid-game when I thought the Chiefs were going to win was the dynasty is in full swing. I even had written down the record, 118-45. That would have been Andy's regular season record with the Chiefs had he won. Obviously, he lost, so he's 117-46. I still feel really good about them. They must have had 45 drops. I mean, honestly, 7, 8 drops. You could argue 10-ish. Like, this is the NFL. This isn't high school football. If it hits your hand, even if it's a little behind you, you got to catch it. One of those drops led to a touchdown. The other thing is, how many teams, especially elite teams, could win without 2 of their best players? And not just like 2 really good players. One guy, I still can't get over the 2 individuals, the Katz brothers, that Chris Jones was sitting next to. They honestly look like guys that would have been walking next to Pesci and Ray Liotta in Goodfellas, that when you walked into a room, one of them would have been behind you and you would have gone bye-bye. That's what they look like. It was an incredible look. One dude was on the phone. I always laugh when you're at like a game. Even, I don't care how important you are, if you're Jeff Bezos or Roger Goodell or whoever, and you're on the phone in a game, like, who are you talking to? Just text the person back. It's always, I got you red flagged, but he showed up, and you could argue that Kelce and Chris Jones are 2 of the top, 6, 7 non-quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, could the 49ers beat the Steelers this weekend without Travis Kelce and Nick Bosa? I don't think so. The Chiefs, I view the Lions as a playoff team. I feel very, very confident. I'd say it's a lock. They're not, if they don't win the division, they're going to make a wild card. Look at the NFC. They're clearly one of the better teams in the NFC as long as Jared Goff does not get injured. And the Chiefs were in full control of that game for a minute with balls hitting the ground. I had to Google some of the guys he was throwing to, and one of them looks like a very promising player, Rice, the second rounder from SMU. Tony, who ended the season really strong for the Chiefs, had a horrendous game. I mean, I don't know, over under 4 or 5 drops. Obviously, the one drop led to a touchdown. Their star tight end, not the star tight end, arguably, I think many people would argue he's the greatest pass-catching tight end ever. Pretty sure his numbers are going to back that up when it's all said and done, was sitting there in shorts and a T-shirt. So they're going to be fine. Here's the other thing. When you have a great coach and a great coaching staff, some of these young players, including Tony, get coached up. They improve. This is also the NFL. If you do not improve, you no longer play. Andy goes about it differently than, say, Belichick. He's just nicer, but you have to get it done. And if you don't get it done, you will get replaced. The other thing is Kelce will come back. I would imagine he was on the fence. They kind of alluded to it during the broadcast. Why risk it? You get a long break to Jacksonville next week. And Chris Jones, I mean, I would be stunned if they don't figure something out in the next 3 or 4 days. So you will get those 2 players back who are elite. And the other guys will eventually make more plays. Their running game will be fine with Pacheco. I also think that they are in the mode of they're going to be sniffing around players to trade for. And when you see these stories about guys like Mike Evans, whoever, insert veteran player who's a high-end guy at wide receiver, they will be in that market. I promise you that. They have one goal moving forward, year in, year out now with Andy and Mahomes. They're the only team in the NFL that I think falls into this category. It's Super Bowl or bust. No one else, none of even the next 3 or 4 teams, the Eagles, the Niners, the Bengals, the Bills, none of them can say that. Getting to the Super Bowl for all those teams is a fantastic season. The Chiefs, anything less than winning the Lombardi, when you have Mahomes in his prime and clearly the best head coach to me in the NFL, is a failure. So they will improve as the season goes on. That's what great coaches do. They coach guys up, and they will get their great players back. If I was a Chiefs fan, sucks to lose on opening night. Not the end of the world. Stuff you got to clean up, but everything will be all right. Can you believe we've had 7 months without an NFL game? Crazy, right? Well, good thing that's over. The NFL is here, baby. And DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is giving you a can't-miss offer for Week 1. This week, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 on any NFL game. DraftKings is hooking everyone up with game day greatness. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every single game day this September. Check the app to see what you get. Download now and use the code JOHN to sign up. New customers can take home $200 in bonus bets instantly just for betting $5. That's code JOHN, J-O-H-N, only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.co/football for eligibility. Terms and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Something that happened, we put out a little social video during early on in the game because I'm pretty sure the Lions got the ball to start, and then the Chiefs got it after a punt. And right before Mahomes, I don't know if he was under center or it was shotgun, right before the ball was going to touch his fingers, I had my my iPad open, and a tweet came out from Adam Schefter that said Joe Burrow officially signed this enormous contract, like $55 million a year, $220 million guaranteed. I think it was like $219, almost $100 million more guaranteed dollars than the Nick Bosa contract. Just a historic moment for the Bengals franchise, for Joe Burrow, and just for the league. I thought it was a complete and utter embarrassment clearly what happened was Mike Brown, who kind of has this, let's face it, we're not as good as the Chiefs syndrome, right? Because if you were confident and secure in yourself, you would leak that out tomorrow when you get the entire day for people to talk about your quarterback, especially after potentially, you don't know if the Chiefs are going to win or lose, early on in the game, but you would kind of get to own the moment. Your player, your franchise, which historically has been very cheap. A lot of people wondered if he goes to the Bengals, will he ever get paid? Should he force his way to another franchise? But the loyal Ohio guy. And for the Bengals, it just felt very low level. It felt very minor league. And honestly, it felt very Mike Brown. I thought if I'm just any other partner in the league, because never forget, all these people are partners. They all do business together. And if memory serves me correct, for years when the Bengals were not doing shit, Andy Reid and the Chiefs were helping the league draw huge ratings, which draws money for teams like the Bengals. And now that the Bengals are their foe and their, I guess, rival, I don't understand it. And I honestly, I just think it's a poor reflection of Mike Brown. I don't blame Shefty. Love that guy. Of course, he's going to leak it when the franchise gives it to him. It's an enormous story. But what a complete waste early on in the game. It just made me, chuckle. Like, come on, guys. Are we really going to be this petty? And are you really not seeing like the forest beyond the trees, like what you're doing here? This is a positive for your franchise, and it kind of just gets lost. I don't know. In the opening game of the NFL with the number one player in the league, like what are we doing? But sometimes Mike Brown is just going to be Mike Brown. Okay, a couple other things I wanted to hit on. I think the Niners-Steeler game, a lot of us, I love offense, and I said this about TCU and Shedeur Sanders and that game. It's really fun to watch. Like, who doesn't like watching good quarterback play, points get scored? But the reason, I love college football, but I like the NFL more because it's just harder to score. And even the NFL, sometimes when something will come up on Instagram of like a play, Ronnie Lott in the 80s or John Lynch in the 90s or Brian Dawkins in the 2000s, it's like, God, I love that NFL when people just got destroyed. When I used to have cassette tapes as a kid of just people getting borderline killed. Now, things change. Information comes out. You obviously had to change the rules, the safety, the lawsuits. Totally understand it. That being said, I still have a soft spot, and I still, yearn for some defense. And for the most part, defense doesn't get played in college football. But in the NFL, you have to have a good defense to not just win a Super Bowl, but to compete in the playoffs. Most teams in the second round and beyond have good defenses. Look last year, Eagles, Niners, the Chiefs are good on defense now. The Bengals, part of the reason with the Bills is they couldn't stop anybody toward the end, right? The Giants weren't quite good enough on defense. The Cowboys had a championship level defense. Their offense let them down. You got to play defense. And I think this Niners-Steeler game is going to be a little throwback. It's going to be one of those games where you better have your chin strap buckled up. People are going to get crushed. And these are the type of games why I still love football. And I like tonight because I thought bodies were flying. People kept DMing me like, what's he doing jumping off sides? Like, I'm not a rule expert. I don't quite know. JJ Watt's on Instagram trying to explain it. I can't even begin to understand. Clearly, it throws me off too, but a rule's a rule. I don't even try to understand. But the level of physicality that's coming, Pittsburgh and the 49ers, is just going to – they have two coaches. Obviously, Kyle's a little younger than Mike Tomlin, but both view football the same way. Want to run the ball down your throat and destroy you on defense. And the level of talent in this game is just outstanding, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Now, both teams, I would say, have question marks at quarterback, despite really believing in that position. From clearly, Mike Tomlin and that organization have loved Kenny Pickett since his senior year at Pittsburgh. Clearly, the 49ers became smitten with Brock Purdy the moment he started playing. And the moment that he played in a short week with like a broken rib against Seattle and then was awesome. So they really believe. But I picked the Niners to go to the Super Bowl, and I picked the Steelers to be right there with the Chiefs when it's all said and done in the AFC. The pressure's on these two quarterbacks, right? Purdy to maintain that level of play, and Kenny Pickett to be a guy that takes a step. If they do, I think you're looking at the Niners winning 13, 14 games, and to me, the Steelers 12-win team. So I would say of all the morning games, this is the one I got circled and I can't wait for. Speaking of other games, a little old school. When I worked for the Eagles, one thing I used to hear was Jeffrey Lurie despises the Patriots, right? Boston guy. I think there was some, at the time, this is before the Eagles ever won a Super Bowl, some jealousy. Obviously, they were the number one franchise in terms of winning at the time, winning Super Bowls. The Patriots had beaten the Eagles in the first Super Bowl with McNabb when he threw up, and Terrell Owens was talking shit about him after, and that was kind of a disaster. But ever since, the Eagles ultimately got off on them. And now the Eagles are kind of up here, and it feels like the Patriots are holding on by a kind of a thread right now. Obviously, I don't know if you saw the news. Belichick broken up with Cougar Linda. Smarty never got married. That would have been a lot of money going her way, but they never tied the knot. Breakup. Rumors are he's very edgy at work. Could be because of her, or could just be, I don't know how good his team is. And one of my takes really this offseason was I think Mac Jones is going to get everyone fired. Now, if you're a diehard Patriot fan, maybe you push back and say he's done enough to try to get the Shula record, that the Crafts are going to let it play out no matter what next year. What if he goes 7-10? They honestly could be solid and go 7-10. The division's really hard. How do they win? They have to have an elite defense. They got to be really good at running the ball and have like Juju Smith go off. That's kind of what they're doing. Kendrick Bourne. I don't know. There were some rumors that Zeke looks pretty good, but this would be a pretty big moment for Bill. Everyone's picking the Eagles. It's Tom Brady, just honoring Tom. The place is going to be going nuts. Bill's going to be on one, pissed off because his girlfriend, hell, I bet, who knows? Maybe she did not break up with Bill Belichick. Belichick broke up with her. So maybe he's feeling some freedom and just ready to roll. But this is a fantastic game. This is one of those games, and we talk about it with Stuckey, you just kind of like dogs early. Of course, the Patriots aren't as good as the Eagles, but things get weird. And you have to wonder, does Bill have some trick plays? Do they run some fakes? on special teams, because I think they would have to do that to beat Philly. But this is another game that I can't wait to watch. And last but not least, we'll be going live, recording a pod with Coward after this game forever. And I understood why they did it, right? The two biggest brands, well, I guess the biggest brand in the NFL is the Cowboys, and the biggest market is New York. So the Cowboys and Giants, it felt like Sunday Night Football, which is the biggest television show in America. It was just always Dallas Giants, either in Dallas or in New York on Sunday Night Football. And a lot of those years, it was like, oh, the Giants suck or the Cowboys are average. Why do we have to watch this? Now, once you get closer and you're in the business, you kind of understand. Like, I get it from a number standpoint, because even if both teams are, 6-11, if it's week one, that game is going to do enormous numbers. Now it feels real. There's like substance behind it. These two teams are good. I'm picking the Cowboys to win the East. I think they're going to be excellent. And I think the Giants aren't just going to back up last year. I think they're going to look dramatically better. I think we're going to see a step from Daniel Jones. I think Waller's going to have, just a huge impact on that offense. Saquon's clearly motivated because he wants a long-term contract. And listen, I'm not pro paying running backs, but if by midseason Saquon's dominating, not just on the ground, which he always has, but is very productive in the passing game, the Maras will want to take care of their guy. I could see if things are going well, them extending him midseason, no problem. And I think there are some rules maybe with the franchise tag, but at the end of the season, you know what I mean? They will want to take care of this player. And this game is legit. I mean, think about Mike McCarthy has been one of the most polarizing coaches in the NFL, the last 7-8 years, probably since middle of his Green Bay run till now. And then when you factor in that he essentially fired Kellen Moore, who gets to go to Justin Herbert, and he takes over play calling. And think about this. I think Justin Herbert's going to be an MVP level player. So what happens if earlier in the day, Herbert throws for 4 touchdowns and Kellen Moore looks awesome? It's like, well, what's Mike going to look like with Dak? Dak's saying all off season, studied my interceptions. I'm going to cut it down. I think I saw a quote today. I've like mastered the offense, or I've never felt more comfortable. There's a ton of pressure on this Cowboys because every year there is, because they're kind of like the Yankees. Their fan base is so big, everyone bets on them. But anyone that watches football knows, like, this is a real team. The squad, every time I see Jason Garrett, I got distracted. I don't understand. Like, part of being on TV is being entertaining. And somehow NBC takes all these guys who are just never going to be entertaining. Tony Dungy, remarkable human being. Character relative to most of us, in a different stratosphere. No one wants to watch him on television. Jason Garrett. Who is asking for this guy to have a microphone on TV? I remember Drew Brees, when they hired him to do NBC, I was like, guys, he is not going to be good. What happened? They fired him a year later. I just don't understand when I look at my TV and there's Jason Garrett breaking down stuff. Like, who's asking for this? But clearly not Jerry Jones when he sent him packing. Now he's got Mike McCarthy. If Mike McCarthy ends up on NBC in 2 years when he gets fired for Deion Sanders, I'm going to lose it. I might boycott NBC because I don't think I could take looking up my TV and seeing McCarthy and Jason Garrett standing next to each other telling me about some Isaiah Pacheco run. I have a mental breakdown. But this Giants-Cowboy game, I can't wait. Okay, let's get to this. My friends at Guinness, they're a big part of the show now. I love Guinness. I've been a loyal Guinness drinker for a long time. Love a good Irish car bomb as well. But I think the Cardinals are going to be god-awful. I think they're really going to be one of the worst teams we've seen in recent memory. Even that Dolphins team that was ironically tanking for Tua, and then they won some games. Ultimately, it turns out you would have wanted Joe Burrow. They ended up taking Tua anyway, and if they could do it over again, they would have taken Herbert, but that's another story we'll get into here in a minute. That I think the Cardinals have a chance to win less than 3 games and just be one of the most atrocious teams in the league. That being said, weird things happen in week 1. And every year in the first couple weeks, you're like, how did that happen? Last year, Bears beat the 49ers. They had the worst record in the league the rest of the season. Hell, 2 weeks later, the Niners lost to the Denver Broncos. So teams early in the season, there's a result that you'll look back on in December. You're like, how the hell did that happen? Pretty simple. Early in the year, you don't see it coming, right? Just teams. It's hard to prepare new schemes, new players. Just everyone thinks they have hope week 1, week 2, right? You could play high school football. You could play junior high basketball. The second game of the season, you do not know you suck. By, 3 months in, you realize you might start mailing it in. But week 1, you get the team's best shot. And here's the thing with the Cardinals. No one has any clue what they're going to look like offensively or defensively. And they do have some capable NFL players. Washington has been weird all offseason. I think Washington is going to compete like they did last year to be right around 8-9 wins. They're not going to be bad. Now, ultimately, I think it'll lead to Ron Rivera losing his job, but I think the Cardinals are going to win. My bold take of the week, brought to you by Guinness, is the Arizona Cardinals win week 1. I was thinking about hedging it with either the Cardinals or the Rams because I think the Rams are going to be terrible too. But I was like, no hedge. I'm going the Cardinals, and I am not backing off. I think they are going to compete for Caleb Williams, and by the end, Caleb Williams' dad will threaten all the way up till his son declares for the draft that he won't come out because he doesn't want his son to play for Michael Bidwell. But they win week 1 against Washington, and everyone goes, do we need to reassess this? And no, we don't. They're going to be terrible. But I got the Cardinals, bold take of the week, beating Washington. Brought to you by Guinness. Gather your friends, raise your glasses, and toast to a win. Guinness Stout imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York. Please drink responsibly.